Hey guys, this is University of Pattern Drafting and my name is Umo. So today we're going to be doing a style breakdown of this corset dress with drapes. So first off, if you follow me on Instagram, I shared a reel about this a while ago. I drafted this pattern for a client in multiple sizes. It wasn't intention to be a tutorial video, so the video is not particularly detailed, and this is why I'm calling it a style breakdown video. So first off, I started by drafting out my basic bodice pattern. So here's my basic bodice pattern that I'm tracing onto fresh pattern paper, and notice that the side seam, I went down on the side seam by 1 inch, and then at the center front by 3 inches, just to be able to create the basque waistline that you can see in the picture here. And then also the corset part is drafted separately from the midriff area. So to draft the corset, the cup part of this dress, I used just regular princess that I just created a bustier essentially, because it's going to be firmer that way. It's going to hold properly that way, like the bust is going to hold properly that way. So anyways, this is me just drafting it out, and I'm imputing my darts. As you can see, if you do not know how to draft a perfect tube or a perfect bustier, I think I have a tutorial on my channel. You can look through the list of my videos and watch whichever one is going to help you draft this properly. And if you are nice enough, in the comment section you can just help us drop a link to my video that shows how to draft a tube pattern. So this is the darts that I'm imputing, and then I'm proceeding to create my side darts. Now this side dart is very important because, as we all know, the front shoulder to waist length is longer than the back shoulder to waist length, and that side that helps us to take cognizance of that. So now on to the midriff area. So this is a dart, this is my side dart, and then this is a dart as well, and then this is also a dart. So I've created my cup as it is this way. Now we're creating the straps. Now for the straps, I just used 1 inch. I prefer to draft my straps on the pattern just so that I know the exact length and I know the exact place is going to be positioned, right? So now onto the neckline. For the neckline, I just, from the center front, I marked 1 point. On the bust point line, I marked 1.25 inches, and I just created that curve. Now this is my midriff area. I'm just imputing my darts. For the midriff area, is nothing serious. The dart does not have to align. It has to be the same width as the dart on the bust area, on the cupped parts, excuse me. It has to be the same width, but it doesn't have to necessarily align in positioning. So this is my midriff area that I'm painting with red, and the blue part is my bustier, or my cup area essentially. So to create the neckline, I just freehanded, like freehand method. So this is my back that I'm drafting. I'm just imputing my darts. The upper bodice of the back is just going to be one piece. I hope you understand that. And this is essentially what it is going to be. And obviously you know that the length of the back is shorter than the length of the front, so I've taken that into cognizance. Now on to the skirt part. This is my basic skirt pattern. I prefer to work with my basic pattern set because it makes me faster, really. So this is my basic pattern set. I think the length that the client wanted for this dress was, I think, 30 something inches. Can't remember exactly what it was, but anyways, this is size 14 that I was drafting because this was a sample size, and I think this is, I don't know, maybe 40 something. I can't really remember the length, but anyways, this is the midriff of my front. Remember that portion that we drafted? I coupled it back into one single pattern, and I'm just using this to create that basque waistline on the skirt part as well. Do you understand? So that the upper bodice of the front just sits into the skirt parts of the front. So I'm just cutting that out, including my seam allowance. Now let's proceed to this. Now notice that this pattern was cut on fold. This paper is folded into two, and you need two of this, right? So this is my back pattern, drafted my back pattern, nothing serious, just ensure that the side seams match, right? So this is my back pattern and my front pattern. Now on my front pattern, I eliminated the dart. On my back pattern as well, I'm going to be eliminating the waist dart. Very, very important, because it's just not necessary. A lot of brands do not like darts on their dresses, so I just took out the dart anyway. So I'm just measuring what the width of the dart is, and I'm taking that, I'm eliminating it from the side seam area. So now this is my full skirt pattern. Now I think that portion is about 4.5 inches, and then the end as well is also 4.5 inches, and I just created a curve. So just keep tracing out your curve until you have something reasonable anyways, because that's essentially what I did. So now we're going to proceed to create the skirt part. So I'm going to create the draped part. Now notice that the front has two, it's like a wrap in front, right? That's why I cut the skirt pattern, the front skirt pattern, unfold in two places, right? So this is going to be that the wrap, this is the shape it's going to take. I hope you understand this. So now let's proceed to creating our drapes, right? So for the drapes, it's going to be 1.5 inches in between. So I'll just mark 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, just, you know, 1.5 inch, 1.5 inch, all the way to below the hip line, right? Oh, sorry, to where the hip line is, because that's where the hip line stops. And then I'm going to use a diagonal line to connect it to the other side, right? So this is just take a look at the picture, look at the direction of the drapes, and just follow suit. So these are my the lines for my drapes, right? And then the red line is going to be my wrap. That's the shape my wrap is going to take. So I'm going to be tracing that onto the other paper. Remember that we cut the front pattern in two places on fold. So I'm just tracing it onto the other part. Now, I prefer to work with carbon paper. So what you're seeing underneath is carbon paper. Usually we have a really wide piece of carbon paper, but in this case we just have a small. So I'm just using my tracing wheel to trace out that red line. That red line is the shape of my wrap, right? Because it makes it clearer. If I don't use the carbon paper, I might not necessarily see where the tracing is if I'm just using only the tracing wheel. So I just prefer to use the carbon paper. So anyways, this is what it looks like. You can even see it from the camera. Can you see how clear it is? So it's just way easier for me instead of having to strain my eyes to, you know, figure out what's not missing. So anyways, this is what it looks like. I'm going to proceed to cut this out. So that's going to be one side of the front, and then remember to impute your seam allowance actually. So that's just 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then before we now proceed to creating our drapes, now this is the second part, and I'm going to be cutting along those black lines. Now notice I'm cutting to the side seam but not through, right? I'm cutting to but not through. So I've cut out every single thing, and I will proceed to put fresh pattern paper underneath. Here I'm using newspaper just because I want to use newspaper. So I'm using newspaper anyways, and I am just, the space in between the lines that I use is about 3.5 inches, I guess. In some cases I used 4 inches, but you know, it was majorly between 3.5 and 4 inches, just so that my drapes are full. So that's what you can see me creating, and I'm just sellotaping it to the newspaper just so that I can now proceed to do what I want to do. So after doing that and being sure of what I have done, I will mark the midpoint of these drapes. So I'm just marking the midpoint of them. This is really important because it helps me know the placement of my drapes. This is a pattern that I'm sending out to a brand, so it has to be really detailed because I'm obviously not going to be there when they're going to be producing, so everything just has to be detailed and easy to use. So this is how I do mine. Now I'm going to just draw a short line in between, right? So I'm drawing a short lines in between, and then I will now proceed to create triangular shapes. I don't know what to call it, but triangular shapes essentially. Now this is going to help them know the positioning of the drapes, right? So nobody has to be there. So even if I'm not there, you know, they just produce comfortably. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just creating triangles. Now this will just help me know exactly how the drapes should fall. This is very important. At the end of the video, I'm going to be showing you how it's going to look like. So just hold on for that. So I'm just going ahead to create this for all of the drapes. and then I will proceed to cut. So in cutting also, notice how I am cutting this. I'm cutting out the triangles as well. Now this is very important. A lot of people just create drapes and they don't necessarily do this, and somehow at the end of the day they cannot figure out where the drape starts from and where it should stop, how it should fall, and all of that. So this is quite important. So I'm just cutting this out. I'm going to proceed to cut out all around my pattern. My original pattern was white paper, so it's just easy to figure it out because it's different from the newspaper. So notice how I'm cutting around the triangles. Can you see how it's done? So you need to do this for every single one of those drapes. And once I'm done, I'm going to show you how this is going to work on fabric. On fabric, it's going to make it much easier for you to know the position of your drape. So now this is how it works, right? When you're folding your pattern, when you're folding your fabric, you can see that you can easily identify the midpoint of your drape, right? And then you can also identify where it falls to on the other side. So this is basically all. Obviously I can't share the final final outcome of the pattern because it's a client's design. So anyways, if you found this video helpful, ensure that you give this video a thumbs up, and if you aren't subscribed to my channel, ensure that you do so that you don't miss out on very useful videos that I share. Now notice how I'm going to cut this out. I'm cutting out the wrap for this other end, and this is how it's going to fall. Now if you feel like the way it falls, if you feel like the opening is too much in front, if you feel like it's way more exposing than you actually would want, then you can come down a bit more before you cut out. Now remember that this is my hip line. You can see I'm starting to cut from my hip line, and then I'm connecting to my hemline, right? So if you don't want yours to be so open, right, then you can come down from your hip line by about 4 inches before you create your wrap, right? So this is how the final result look like of the skirt part. You can see how open it is. If you don't want yours to be this open, then you can do from 4 inches below your hip line. Ciao guys, and keep learning guys.